Do you know the 7 principles of leave no trace? Let's talk about it. Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk about the 7 principles of leave no trace. Now, this is big throughout scouting. We want to make sure that we leave the environment safe for other people to enjoy. So we've developed a leave no trace behavior, an ethic, an ethos. So that's what we do. That we want our units that are going out and enjoying nature, we want to preserve that nature. Now, the first one is plan ahead. This is kind of simple. This is something that your leadership, hopefully your youth leadership is a part of that too, not just being put on an adult leader. We need the youth involved in that too. We want them to make some phone calls and do some research and make sure that wherever you're going, that you know what it is. Do you need permissions and all that kind of stuff? Does a gate need to be unlocked so you could go on a big hike? There's a lot of logistics that need to be worked out. You need to know, is it pack it in, pack it out? You need to know these things. It could be really a problem without being prepared for that eventuality. Traveling and camping on durable surfaces. Now, this is really critical. When you finally get out there and you're camping, make sure that it's a campsite. If it's meant for being a place for tents to be put up, that's a very important thing to work out. That's some of that logistics early on. You want to make sure that there's campsites, maybe even a place for a campfire. So, that's something, you don't want to be creating these things. Now, if you're on a trail that's established, stay on that trail. Don't be trotting and going off and making new trails. You want to stay on the trail that's been set up. That's a durable surface. It's something that's been used many times before. You don't want to create new patterns in the woods. This messes with the animals. The animals who actually, you're in their home, that messes with them. If you all of a sudden have a new path, that can mess with their environment. So you don't want to be doing that. So we want to leave no trace. So stay on those durable surfaces. The next big principle is dispose of water properly. In many times when you're out on the trail, it's difficult to use water and to pack in water. And what do you do with that wastewater after you're done cleaning dishes and stuff? Now, there's some places where they actually put a sump, which is basically a tube sticking up out of the ground. It's hooked up to a septic tank and a bleeder system underground. And you can actually use that while you're camping, while you're hiking. You can pour your wastewater into that and it will be taken care of. Now, typically there's a filter and a funnel and you want to make sure that all the food particles are taken care of. Now, another thing about that is you don't want to attract animals to it. So you might want to just rinse off the top of the screen to make sure that animals aren't smelling it. And anything you do wipe off, you want to put in a bag and then put that with your smellables. Put it up in the tree, keep the bears and all that stuff from getting into it. So it is something you have to think ahead, and that's critical. Now, often they may not have that available. So you might want to take the water and actually screen the water, taking out all the food particles of it. So it is wastewater, but you want to screen all that out, all of the big particles. And that wastewater can be disposed of. Now, you need to do this away from 200 feet away from campsites, trails, water, lakes, rivers, that's something. And you want to aerate that water. Make sure that all the food particles have been taken out, wiped out, and then that, of course, again, put those smellables away. We want to leave as little of an impact, if none. We don't want to impact it at all. Leave no trace. That's the big thing here. The next one is leave what you find. A good campsite is found. It's not made. So if you can't find a campsite, that goes back to number one, okay? Planning. You have to plan that, okay? If you can't find that campsite, you'll have to make do. Don't place your tents in a row, okay? That creates a path. It wears down the grass. And when you wear down any surface, you're creating a pattern, and that disturbs the animals that live there full time, okay? You're just visiting. You're in their home. So you want to make sure that it's random. And you can't camp for more than 2 nights in a non-campsite, okay? You got to move your tents around, okay? Otherwise, you're building a campsite, and that's not good. Now, another big thing is on leave, what you find. If you find something unsafe, you need to steer your group around it, okay? If you're out on the trail and there's a safety issue, it's not your job to change things. That is leaving a trace. A few years back, there was a scoutmaster who got in a tremendous amount of trouble thinking that he was doing the right thing, but he had totally dismissed leave no trace. If you find something like that, you need to get around it. You don't need to go down that path if it's dangerous. You don't need to take it upon yourself to change the trail or to change the environment to make it safer, in your opinion. That's not the point. The point is to leave only footprints and take pictures. The next one is minimizing campfire impact. Campfires are wonderful for us humans. We love to sit around the campfire, especially telling those scout scary stories and all that kind of stuff. That's a lot of fun. That's a big part of going camping. But the campfire itself can actually be very damaging. You do not build a campfire where it has not been before. When you build a brand new campfire, you literally sterilize the dirt, the ground underneath, all the seeds and everything that's in there, because of the heat of the fire. So that's something to consider. You only build a fire if you're planning on it and you have the proper equipment to do that, okay? That's important. Fires are wonderful. In the right hands, they can be a beautiful thing. But if you don't do it correctly, that can be damaging to many others. And the animals that live full time will be changed because of that simple little campfire. So with that, if you're planning on going on a hike or camp out in rugged area, and you want to have that campfire, bring your own wood. Don't scavenge the wood or plan on scavenging the wood from where this campfire ring is. There's several reasons. The animals that live there depend on those trees that have fallen, those branches that have fallen, for all kinds of things. Everything from a place to live, to run away from predators. These are, and if you go and burn it, they won't have it, okay? So we are in their home. So it's important that we bring the firewood we plan to burn. Now, in addition to that, we also have to be able to put it out. We need to bring water, okay? So this is a heavy thing. If you're out on a 50-mile hike and you want a campfire, that's a big undertaking. That's serious, okay? So you have to get that logistics, that planning at the very beginning. You have to put all of that in place. Now, one other thing is that once you've had your campfire and it's completely out and cold, the unburned wood, usually there's a log or two that are partly charred, and then the rest of it is regular wood, okay? Those need to be dispersed. Now, 200 feet from any trail, any kind of area, totally cold overnight, these things have to be completely burned out. They cannot be any heat at all on them. In fact, I would water them down before even moving them. Once they have been completely out for a long period of time, like overnight, you need to take those pieces of wood and don't leave them in the fire. You need to take those chunks of wood and put them out in the woods. The charred material that's on there over time will slough off because of the rain and weather. coming along. That'll slough off, and that'll actually help the environment. That charcoal is good for the soil. Okay, the wood that's left over, the animals, the bugs and stuff will drill right into that. That's one of the neat things. So you're not leaving your fire trash there. You want to disperse those in every direction. Okay, from campsite it's got to be about 200 feet, but they have to be completely cold and wet in order for that to work. That'll prevent any problems later on. If you were to do the fire and then try to put them out in the woods, you're going to cause a forest fire. Okay, so you have to use the brain. Okay, you need to water those things down. Okay, even putting them in a bucket of water, and then you can take them and put them out wherever. And they are very good for the environment. So these are things you have to think ahead. That's the big thing about Leave No Trace. Another big point is respecting wildlife. We are visiting their home. So sudden movements, loud noises, flashy colors, flashlights in the woods, that's very disturbing to animals. That disrupts their life in the woods, which is their home. Now, if you see wildlife off in the distance, try to slowly back away and move away. It's okay to use your camera to take photographs. That's fine. But approaching wildlife can be enormously dangerous. And a lot of people are severely injured in remote parts where we can't airlift them out. Okay? They have to suffer to be carried out. I mean, you want to use common sense. If you see wildlife, deer, antelope, the beautiful bisons that are out there, do not approach them. Okay? You're in their home. This is where they live. You're visiting. So it's important to keep that in mind, and you want to tell your youth about that. They are visiting. They're not to approach these animals. They're to leave them alone, especially bears and that kind of stuff. If you see wildlife, you want to take your photographs and then slowly and quietly move away. Now, especially out west, and even here where I live in Central Florida, we have bear boxes that are in established campsites. And the bear box is literally bolted to concrete and mounted in the ground, and it's a steel cabinet that has a very unique lock that requires fingers, not paws. Okay, and you can put your smellables inside that box, and they will be attracted to it. They can actually tell there's something in the box, but they are not able to get into it, make an enormous mess, and also become dependent on feeding on food that's left out like that. So the bear boxes are out there, especially out west, and well, everywhere throughout the United States there are bear boxes in the campsite. Please use them. The last thing we want are wild animals becoming dependent on the food or the waste from people that are visiting. We don't visit year round, okay, but they live there year round, and if they're dependent on that, that becomes a real problem. They become nuisances. They will leave the woods and go into nearby neighborhoods, okay? I live in Florida. We have a black bear that loves to go off and dine at the nearest trash can, okay? So it is one of those things. It's really, really important that we do not disturb the wildlife in their own home. We're visitors. Always stress that with your youth. Being considerate of other visitors. A lot of times these trails are very popular. If you've been out west, like Yellowstone Park and even Philmont, these places are very popular. Now at Philmont, they keep the crew away from each other so they're not piling up, and they keep them relatively small. And that's kind of what you need to do. Now, if you're going to a public park or you're going into a forest preserve, you want to keep your groups small and stay a distance away from other groups. You want to keep everybody as quiet as possible. Remember, we are guests in the wildlife's home. So if you want to experience that, and it's a beautiful thing to see these animals in their natural habitat, that's something we want our youth to experience and see and enjoy for generations. We want that, okay? That's something we want to happen. And in order for that to happen is we need to travel in small groups and respect other groups. Try to keep the noise down. Fast movements, running around, flashlights in the woods. Now, I know a lot of Cub Scouts, that's a big thing. But the Cub Scout should be in a campsite that the wildlife is used to it, okay? Or it's already been spoiled. But if you're out on the trail, keep that in mind. You're a visitor. You don't live there full time. So be respectful of others that are visiting and the wildlife that you're visiting. Now, another big thing about traveling around and trying to stay on the trail. I was in a scout troop that was on a hike, and there was a fence line that we were going down. And we traveled this fence line, and then we realized where we wanted to be was the road on the other side. And this was a very small, maybe a 500-foot gap between the fence line where we were. We were to walk to the end of the fence line, which is way down the road, and then come back up the road. So there was a gate, literally just there, and we could see the gate on the other side. And being scouts, we thought, we could open the gate, go to the other side, and we'd be there. We don't have to walk all the way around. Well, it dawned on me to tell the scouts that was not the plan. That area is private property. We as scouts have to respect that private property. So grumbling under their breath, they continued on and around. As we came around, the other end of the group started to show up. Well, they had the same bright idea, but there wasn't an adult leader there to remind them that that's private property and we do not have permission to cross. It would be convenient, but it's not, we don't have the right to do that. But before we could get in yelling range, they had already opened the gate. And as they entered, the first scout that entered was confronted by a huge bull with horns, and it was scary. And the guys behind him, they saw it coming. The first guy through didn't see it, so they slammed the gate on him. So he scurried right out of there. But that's the reason, we yelled back, I said, you stay out of there, you're bothering the bull. And, it was a scene, all right? But it's one of those things. You have to remind youth to respect private property. There's a reason that was fenced off. It was for the bull. And bulls, they don't mind. If you get in their territory, they can hurt you. So you have to be very careful when you're out on the trail. Remind your youth to keep in mind that if you do not have permission for that private property, you do not cross it. Plain and simple. There's always a reason. Now, there's the 7 principles of leave no trace. When I was teaching Den Chief at University of Scouting, and I've done that many times, one of the things that I start off with, it's usually in a high school, and I'm usually put in a classroom because I like having a PowerPoint that I can go through the whole process, because the syllabus is it's done by national, and I go by that syllabus. Anyways, when I get to that classroom, I want to make sure that I leave no trace. I use this in a school. I actually take photographs. I use my phone, and I'll take photographs of the classroom from each corner of the room, just to make sure I know where the desks are and where they want to put them back. okay? And at the end of the day, I put the room back exactly the same way. I don't leave any trash. I clean up everything. Every desk has been wiped down. Everything is put back exactly in the same place. In fact, we've had faculty come in the next day and say, oh, I guess they didn't use the room. That's because I wanted to leave no trace. But I did. And you know what that was? I left them an empty trash can. I couldn't leave my trash laying there. So I took the trash and I used the bag that they had down in the trash can, and I left a trace, but it was an empty trash bag. So that's the key. These things follow through for other things, not just for camping and hiking and going out into great nature, but also at meetings. Why not? Leave no trace. That kind of follows through on a lot of different things. Now, what we do want to do is leave a smile, the trace of a smile on our scouts. And they're doing so many great and wonderful things. And one of the things this season, and it's coming up, the season can't last forever. All the scouter jokes that we've been telling. These are great ways to leave a smile without leaving a trace. Okay? So think of it that way. There's a lot of ways you can work this in. And with that, let's do the Scouter's Joke of the Week. Did you hear about the cheese factory that exploded in France? It left debris everywhere. Brie. Brie is one of my favorite cheeses. I love brie. But it left debris everywhere. So with that, I wanna thank you so much for joining me on the ScouterStan channel. Feel free to talk in the community section we have. We have leaders in there, and if you have any questions, suggestions, I am there for you. And you just keep up doing the good work that you're doing, and I will see you on the trail.